This episode of We Are Libertarians is brought to you by Audible.com. Enjoy one free audiobook courtesy of We Are Libertarians. Choose from more than 100,000 audiobook titles, including works by Ron Paul, Walter Block, Murray Rothbard, and the Cato Institute. Audible.com also has audio of radio and TV programs and audio versions of magazines and newspapers. You can get the Audible app on any mobile device or download the audio to your computer. Go to audibletrial.com/WAL or head to WeareLibertarians.com and find the link to get one free month of Audible today. Welcome to We Are Libertarians for this week. I am Chris Spangle, your host, and to the man to my right is the scared like a little girl, Greg Lenz.
The scared like a little girl, Gregory Lenz.
Yeah, we didn't do any prep for this episode whatsoever. I don't even really have an idea what we're going to talk about, and it really wigs Greg out.
It does. I have a plan for making plans, so
Yes.
This is very unlike me.
He likes to study and do his homework before the episode, and this is really since the relaunch in January. We do have an idea of topics, and we do know what we're going to talk about. All the 2012 shows, not a clue. Me, Creighton Galt, and I would just sit down and let it roll.
The question is, will somebody get punched today?
Yeah, I hope so. The man that will probably be punched is to my left, Dan Peffers, returning again. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, and as a anarchist, I am very fond of this form.
All right, good. And joining me on my lap is Mittens. Mittens, say hello. Obviously not a broadcaster.
Mittens pops her peas.
She does. She's not quite a broadcaster. She just wants cuddles, don't you?
She's a very attention-seeking cat.
She is. And then in about 5 minutes, she's going to bite my hand.
Yeah.
And smack me and say, that's enough.
It's like a German woman. You can only give them so much attention before they get violent.
Why do German women have that reputation?
Oh, I don't know. They just do.
Okay.
All stereotypes originated in a modicum of truth.
I think it originated when the Berlin Wall fell because a East German woman was craving West German chocolates.
Aha.
So, wow. Where's Gina? Gina needs to balance out the sexism of this episode.
Gina is a cruel German woman.
So we enjoyed lunch together. We went to Hooters,
A fine dining establishment for cultured gentlemen.
We went there for the food.
I'm more of a wings, etc. guy.
Yeah, I mean, eating at Hooters, so we're all on fecal urgency watch.
Yes,
at any moment.
It's code taupe.
Right.
It's code taupe.
Code taupe.
It's you never know what you're gonna get when you eat at Hooters. The food is great, but man, it really hurts your tummy.
It does, but I think I found the future Mrs. X Lenz.
Really?
I think I identified her.
Which one?
Well,
I didn't
the
blonde
actually
one
so
with
much,
big boobs.
No, I didn't so much speak to her. As slowly, I did a recon mission.
Repeatedly took her photo.
Yes, it was a recon mission. I haven't exactly initiated contact yet.
So you acted like a creeper, is what you're saying?
Well, some say creepy, some say
no, creeper.
Oh, creeper.
Was her
creeper.
name Misty?
Was not. I didn't actually get her name.
Was it Barbie?
Crystal?
No. I can't say anything here that's not going to be perceived as racist, so I'm not going to say it.
Was she named after some sort of alcoholic beverage?
Right. No. She was not. It was Angela, I believe.
Wow.
I'll tell you more when the background
Did she write
report
that on
comes
the
in.
napkin with little hearts above the A's?
She did.
But no phone number.
Yeah, she said, please make checks payable to my child's private school.
Oh, my. And we were there dining with our friend and fellow podcaster, Matt What's-His-Face.
Matthew Hurt of The Obsessive Viewer and Tiny Ramian. Tiny
is... let's just say that floor underneath that table needed to be reinforced.
I'll tell you, he's about 6'5", probably, I'd say about 310, 305. The guy is built like a horse.
Yeah.
Like a horse.
More like an ox.
Yeah, he could beat the hell out of anyone he talks to.
Yeah, and then the other three guys at the table were not necessarily small. I was probably the littlest at this table.
Yep.
You might actually be smaller than me. So
it was a very attractive gentleman. It was. What you were saying.
Listen, when these girls are at work, it's like a treat getting to see that table. Let me tell you.
You, though, are the only one that's actually been eating at Hooters alone and had a waitress sit down and dine with you. I don't know if that's a sympathy lunch or if you're just that masculine she couldn't avoid it.
Oh, when women look at me, they just say, there's an alpha. That is an alpha right
You
there.
are the libertarian Marco Rubio.
I am. Marco doesn't really seem like an alpha, though. He really seems more metrosexual.
Yeah, but he does quote Wiz Khalifa a lot. So he has some urban street cred.
Yeah, he has sort of a Joe feel to him.
He does. You know what? That's a good thing. Yeah, he has a Joe feel to him.
Joe Ruiz and Marco Rubio could be twins.
Joe Ruiz, you know, the guy who was posting pictures of bed and breakfast on Facebook.
I think it's a Civil War reenactment facility is where he's staying this
He's
weekend.
at a bed and breakfast, and he's like, this is a really cute B&B. This is really well built. I'm like, yeah, I wonder who built that plantation in Georgia that you're staying at, Joe. He's like, it's not a plantation. I'm like, look, they have a grand dining hall where they have dances. Like, I can see, Thomas Jefferson waltzing in there. He's like, this isn't a plantation. I'm like, dude, it's a giant white house with columns on its front porch. It's a plantation.
I think what you said was that looks like a great porch to discuss secession. Those were your exact words.
I asked how many mint juleps he had enjoyed. And then so we were talking about it, and he was sharing pictures of the inside of this B&B, and it was very cute. And you said the following.
That one snide remark I made?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I said I thought this was a place where we could share not safe for work jokes and pictures and whatnot. But instead, it's a couple of married guys swapping pictures of bed and breakfast.
Welcome to Facebook after the age of 25.
Yeah. It's once after
I'm
27.
I don't have any pictures of bed and breakfast I've stayed at.
Once
I
you're
think it's
married,
a married thing.
Yeah, once you're married, your entertainment standards, what entertains you or you find interesting, it really changes after you're married and have kids.
It used to be all about I can't wait for spring break when I initially was on Facebook, and now it's, wow, you know what? She doesn't look bad in pregnancy.
And you're like, wow, you know what? I really would like to go to the Alps someday. These are cool photos. I wonder how far he had to climb. So, yeah, just things change when you get married. Most for the better.
Your lifestyle hasn't changed too much.
Not really.
Are you castrated when you get married?
No. I mean, no. No, you're not.
You're showing the classic symptoms.
What?
Wow.
He's
bed
a bad
and breakfast
example.
Pictures.
Chris is a bad example. Spangle's a bad example.
My wife and I, she's gone from noon to 9 today. So this is a Saturday when we're recording. She's gone all the time. She works just as hard as I do, and so, our paths cross in the evening. We have our TV shows. We sometimes order food, and then we spend Sunday yelling at each other like any normal married couple.
Well, you got to have some of that fighting.
Yeah, we got to have that one day where we just are glad that we're not around each other the other 6 days.
Yeah.
So like the purge for married couples.
Right. And so she, sorry, Mittens just bit you, by the way.
Oh, it's all right.
Wow, get away, get a shoe.
Cats usually hate me, so this is quite peculiar.
Yeah. But, she doesn't call and ask where I am or what I'm doing, and I guess it's because we don't have kids that I don't have that kind of responsibility. Like Joe has to be home. He has a curfew.
He does, and his kids are really cool, really fun kids, so I get it. I mean, I would want to be around them all the time. It's just the constant responsibility.
Oh, I know. I once asked some parents, why are you so busy with these kids? Like, put them in front of the TV or send them out to play or something. And they're like, they're 3. And it's like having a little child on suicide watch all the time. They're constantly trying to kill themselves. Like, oh, okay.
They're kamikaze.
Well, I understand the differences between someone like myself, swinging single, and somebody who has children. But like somebody who's just married, and do you really feel you have the excuse to be sharing pictures of bed and breakfast on Facebook?
I wasn't sharing photos because I've never been to a
You were
bed and
sharing
breakfast.
in the experience. It's pretty much you there in spirit.
I like architecture. What's unmanly about appreciating a fine former slave plantation?
Southern Georgian architecture is, though, very beautiful. It is.
Yeah, what is wrong with looking at a building and appreciating the fine art on the wall? What is unmanly about that?
I don't know. It's just... choose something that you're not going to see on HGTV.
Choose ignore
choose
the hot
something
box
you'd
in
see.
the front yard.
I'm sorry. Am I a bad person for watching Property Brothers
Yes.
earlier? I enjoy Property Brothers, even though they're Canadian.
Just flip to the History Channel once in a while, and
Oh,
you'll
so
never
I
go
can
to
watch-
HGTV.
So I can watch ancient space aliens and
not
crap that's not true?
At that point, you switch to True TV.
Okay.
Sharknado.
True TV has Impractical Jokers.
Yeah, something
Best
about,
show
you got to watch something about guns or pawn shops,
I exposed you to Impractical Jokers before the podcast while we were waiting on Peppers to roll out of bed and put the doobie down and get down here. So
hey, you guys said 4. If you wanted to start earlier than that, then tell me.
Whatever, pothead. So, what did you think of Impractical Jokers?
The best show. It's my favorite show right now.
Yeah.
On TV, it is my favorite show, hands down.
You've seen 3 episodes.
And there are
today.
some ones that, it's like any show, they're not all going to be home runs, but, at least 2 out of the 3 practical jokes they play are hysterical.
Yeah. So, it's this show where 4 lifelong friends get together and they play practical jokes on each other. And it's sort of like a candid camera show where they walk up and they try and surprise the unsuspecting person, but the guy who is doing the joking or the pranks doesn't know what the prank is. It is fed to them by the other 3 off somewhere else.
I mean, I'll say this. I saw a probably 71, 72-year-old grandma walking through Central Park get flipped off point blank. It was awesome.
Okay, so this is like Workaholics, the reality show.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
It really kind of is. And it is a hilarious show, and they're coming to town here, and they have a podcast. Look up the Tenderloins podcast.
We should have them on when they come to Indy.
We should try. They're big time. They have a show on basic cable.
Yeah.
So we'll try. But the Tenderloins podcast. Forget what the other one is, but then they also if you know what Tell 'em Steve Dave is, Brian Quinn is on the show. So if you're a podcast connoisseur like myself,
aficionado,
yeah, you might know it. So a lot of podcast talk. You got the Obsessive Viewer, the Tenderloins podcast. You may have noticed that a few of our shows are taking a break. Not this one. Not We Are Libertarians. We are still going strong. This is episode 65.
We will not quit ever.
Only 4 more until we go through the entire podcast giggling uncontrollably like Beavis and Butthead. But some of our other shows have gone on hiatus. So if you notice that there are a couple of the shows that aren't updating. Gina, for instance, is retiring from podcasting, and she's going to come back and do one final episode. That's what she told me today. And so Story Time with Gina will have 1 episode left. Creating Maya was a year-long series, and that has ended. The Show Report, we're not sure what's up there. And the Rob Kendall Show. Rob, congratulations. He got a job with the state of Indiana and had to take a leave of absence. So I guess what I'm saying...
Should a libertarian show be congratulating someone on taking a job with the state?
That is true. He is now a statist.
He's taking things down from the inside, I'm presuming.
He's sucking from the teat of the state auditor's office.
As long as
Until they have sore, chapped nipples.
Yes.
As long as that money goes toward the Edward Snowden Legal Defense Fund, that's fine.
I'm just saying, Kendall, you need to make a PayPal contribution at wearelibertarians.com. Scroll to the bottom and give us some of that government funds that you're collecting.
Redistribute it, if you will.
Yeah, redistribute it to the private sector.
Do we accept bitcoins?
I don't know. Sure.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know. I don't know how to take Bitcoin. I would. I'm not against it. I just don't know how to do it.
It's something about getting a wallet and
something like with wallets.
Actually, if you see The Social Network, you know the movie, the Winklevoss twins are backing a bunch of Bitcoin wallet startups. They're really interested in Bitcoin as a alternative. So I can put together a list if you're interested at all.
It sounds like a lot of work.
I'll post it myself. All you have to do is just approve it.
I'm just saying, it sounds like a lot of work, and people probably won't donate.
It sounds like you need to talk to Jeffrey Tucker a little bit more.
Listen, he doesn't need to convince me.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to convince me of the.
Why do you hate Liberty Spangle?
I'm just saying that I'm lazy, and I would just rather give you send me your fake number in currency notes. So at PayPal, but. So if you check out WAL-radio.com, check out our podcast. If you are a libertarian podcast and you think that you meet our quality standards, no laughs, okay, then please send a demo to spangle@wearelibertarians.com. And if you're interested in writing for the website, then hit up Joe Ruiz, care of Dublin, Georgia, Plantation 6. Room 32.
You mean Joe Calvin Candy Ruiz?
Right.
He's at Candyland.
Joe Searsucker Ruiz.
Yes.
So
The Ruiz is ironic from his
Yes.
younger days.
it is kind of funny. I mean, a Puerto Rican plantation owner.
You know, he advocates for their statehood quite a bit.
I know, it's
and they're
really-
very, very. They're very much a
just don't-
parasite on the U.S. government.
I just don't understand why he's so eager for everyone there to pay federal taxes.
Yeah, because
because we're giving him a bunch of benefits right now.
we
that they're not
all
paying
know that Joe is a dirty, dirty statist. See, that's my new
That's
thing.
what happens when you start out as a Democrat. You know,
Maya's
you
rubbed off
never
on
really
me.
get rid of it.
Statist.
What?
The what?
For. Once you are identify as a Democrat, your statist hymen can never be
my
restored.
God. Oh, wow.
Okay, wow, we are
Wow.
stretching the metaphor.
We are.
That's what she said.
I told you, give me a plan, or it's going to get bad off the cuff.
I have no plan. We'll take a few listener. I do have a few listener questions that we'll read, but sort of the big brouhaha this past week really has been the Sarvis versus Cuccinelli versus McAuliffe race. And if you're to take a look at the libertarian world, there has been a definite drawing of the lines, and quite a few people have been a-holes, including myself, this past week. We've got... Here's what happened, okay? There's the Virginia governor's race this past week, and Terry McAuliffe, who is the former head of the DNC under the Clintons, one of the most corrupt people in politics today.
The modern day Al Capone.
Really just a scumbag. And then there's Ken Cuccinelli, who is the Republican.
He's Richard Murdoch.
Right. He's very Murdoch-like, if you're a Hoosier. He is a social conservative, and I know that people want to try and fudge his record and say that he's not, but
He's
he is.
more than that, even. I mean, I would almost say he borderline is a theocrat on social issues.
Yeah, and...
Really?
He apparently, though, is an Austrian economist, and so that's why the Pauls, Ron and Rand, endorsed him and went on and stumped for him.
One thing about Ron and Rand is, you know, they're good politicians as far as building coalitions with and whatnot, but bottom line is the Republican Party, and they're going to go with the party lines.
Especially with 2016 hurtling at us. And so Cuccinelli had, anytime your candidate has to spend half the campaign explaining his position on sodomy, not necessarily a good candidate choice. He's also had, he was involved in the scandals in Virginia with the governor and taking graft. He had to give a few gifts back. He also had one of his staff members was embroiled in a controversy. His numbers with women were terrible.
He had the RNC didn't even support him.
He was.
They didn't like him.
Yeah,
So he's basically a Santorum then.
Yes.
yeah. The RNC, the Governors Association, none of them really got behind him.
They gave him half the money of McAuliffe.
He was outspent
Behind
2-1, and McAuliffe spent all of his time just beating him over the head with the war on women stuff. All that to say that Sarvis lost him the election. The Libertarian Robert Sarvis was the reason that Ken Cuccinelli lost the election, which is total horse.
That only follows if you feel that the Republican Party owned those votes to begin with.
Right.
And that is a false argument.
So I know that there have been several things about how Sarvis wasn't a libertarian. I told you everything that I know about the Virginia's governor's race and the candidates right there. That little bit is all I know. Okay, so I'm not here to debate with you guys who is better, Sarvis or Cuccinelli. I have a definite preference.
I am.
And it would be the Libertarian candidate.
He was a better Republican candidate than the Republican candidate.
Why do you say that?
Because he didn't think... When you try to say that because the U.S. law is based off of natural law, and therefore it's natural for a man and a woman to have sex, but it is in fact not natural for a man and a man to have sex, and we should codify that into law, that is a moronic position. You are not even a Republican. You might as well join the Palin Party and the Bachmann Party.
Right. And Sarvis had this one thing that was taken out of context by the National Journal where he supposedly supported taxing you for every mile you drove. And he made the mistake of thinking about the question out loud and was misquoted. And that was somehow a great betrayal of libertarian principles. And that's why you needed to support Ken Cuccinelli in Virginia.
Is it really? Paying for what you use is the most fundamental libertarian position. Just because it would go to the state, that's reality.
It's not the most fundamental. It's a position that tends to be very in line.
In policy, there wouldn't be any government policy.
As
but
far as policies go, it's
if you're
going to
use a resource, you pay for it.
Yeah.
Unless you're voluntarily getting contributions from someone else to help you with it.
Right. So it has been a big brouhaha in the libertarian world. Let's talk about the wasted vote syndrome. Let's start with sort of the philosophical questions about the wasted vote syndrome and why it's such a silly argument to have, and yet it does work. It does actually dissuade people. One other thing about Sarvis, and let's talk about dissuading people from voting for a candidate. I canceled my subscription to The Blaze this week. I had a $10 a month subscription to Glenn Beck's The Blaze service, and I canceled it this week. And I'm a person that listens or has listened to Glenn Beck regularly for years, many years.
Should you be admitting this on a libertarian podcast?
Absolutely. I think that Beck is thoughtful. Beck makes you think. You don't have to agree with someone all the time to listen to them.
I know we know that, but
right.
not all our listeners.
Well, but let me lay it out for you. You listen. Many people listen to Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity to hear what they ought to think. And Glenn Beck is a program that you can listen to, and you'll go, I never thought of it that way. That's interesting information. What you have to do with Glenn Beck is whenever you hear information given and presented by Beck, you've got to go fact check him. Because he gets stuff stuck in his ADD brain that sort of rolls around and
it's a half-truth.
It's and not on purpose. I don't think he's lying most of the time. I think he forgets key facts.
And he's excitable.
And he overblows everything. Everything is about to change the world, all this. So you've got to really kind of go back and fact check. But he does kind of lead you to some interesting facts. And I think that he's a person that has become more and more libertarian. He is becoming... he understands libertarian principles more and more each day. But he did something so against his own values that he talks about, and something that really I just can't financially support someone who does what he did this week. He orchestrated or was given information by somebody who said that this big Obama bundler was funding Robert Sarvis to hurt Ken Cuccinelli. Okay, here's the actual facts of it. This supposed Obama bundler was somebody who has supported many libertarian candidates, many in the Libertarian Party. He's somebody who cares about civil liberties, civil rights, and many of the things that libertarians and liberals would agree on. Okay? And yes, he does contribute to Democrats, including Barack Obama. I think he's like some sort of Texas software millionaire guy.
He's a billionaire.
So, but he does appreciate a third party, and he didn't like McAuliffe, and so that's why he was helping to fund Sarvis, because he felt that Sarvis was on the left and would draw more votes for McAuliffe, which is, if you look at the exit polling from the Washington Post, exactly what happened.
Empirically proven without a doubt.
A 100% fact. That if you go to the Fix, if you go to the Washington Post, and you look at the exit polling, he pulled more from McAuliffe than he did from Cuccinelli. Okay, and that's why this software person was behind it. So hold on. So how long was this known? Okay, the first donation was made to this libertarian PAC run by Wes Benedict, who this PAC, Benedict is now the Libertarian National, the LNC, the National Party. The LNC, I forget what the C stands for. Gosh, you leave a job and a year later you forget everything. Committee, thank you. What am I?
You were looking for the word committee.
I really, yeah.
He is no longer president of all libertarians.
I know, I'm demoted to vice president, so I'm going to call the wrong winner in the next race. So Wes Benedict had this PAC, and he received a donation in 2011 in December from this guy, and this guy gave, I think, $150,000 to the Texas Libertarian Party, and Wes lived in Texas at the time, and so his PAC then printed up a bunch of bumper stickers and yard signs, and then the guy also gave another contribution for ballot access. So, yeah, he did try to help him get on the ballot, but it wasn't because he wanted to screw over Cuccinelli. It's because he liked Sarvis. It's because he liked libertarians. So what does Glenn Beck do? And what does the so-called new libertarian do? They twist the story, they wait until the day before the election, and they write false headlines, misleading headlines, to drive down the amount of people that will vote for Sarvis, to help Ken Cuccinelli. Glenn Beck misled his audience and smeared a fellow libertarian for the sake of a Republican who probably does share more of Beck's values than Sarvis would.
He's a pretty perfect representation of Beck.
Right.
Austrian economics and then
social conservatism.
hardcore fundamental social conservatism.
Right.
That's what happens when you bring Mormons into the mix.
If you don't like McAuliffe, then go after McAuliffe. But if you are on the same team, don't sit there and smear the guy, and ruin his reputation. And ruin the reputation of people who hold many of the same beliefs as you and try and drive people away from that option. That's anti-First Amendment, that's anti-free speech, that's anti-choice, and if those are your values, I'm not going to pay you money. Period. Plain and simple. And it was wrong. And I'm done contributing to Glenn Beck. I'm not going to pay for his service because I don't like manipulation. I don't like someone manipulating their audience. And I especially don't like it from people on my own side who say that they're better than the other people who do it. And I thought that it was incredibly shameful. Everybody at The Blaze, Breitbart, you all should be ashamed of yourselves. And if you just shared that story without reading the body of the story, you just shared it because of the headline that you read, and you went on social media and you smeared another libertarian without actually understanding the facts, you should be ashamed of yourself too. And I know that's probably pissing off some people in our audience, but I don't care. Because you have to use your brain and think about this kind of stuff. And if you didn't this time, do better next time.
And it's hypocritical. 2008, Operation Chaos, organized by Rush Limbaugh to go and split the Democrat Party with unregistered Republicans in every state to make it a knockdown, drag-out fight and hope that whatever Democrat candidate won would be unelectable. They did that exactly to Barack and Hillary. What do? Oh, it happens to a Republican all of a sudden. Oh, great. Now, a libertarian? They're getting support from a Democrat. It's just the Democrats using it on us. False story. BS. Cuccinelli was a bad candidate. The RNC didn't even support him. He's Rick Santorum. They downplayed his social conservatism. And because he speaks Austrian economics does not mean that he's a good candidate.
Now, if Creighton supported Cuccinelli over Sarvis, and I don't have a problem with that. You know what? If you felt that Cuccinelli was the better choice and your path to bringing more liberty to America is through the Republican Party, I'm okay with that. Just like you should respect the fact that I believe a third party is desperately needed in this country and that the Republican Party is a dying brand and that I'm not personally going to spend 20 years kissing some old white man's ass and having the right people gossip about me so that I may one day get my shot at running for office. And through those years, I've got to hide the fact that I'm a
libertarian.
A libertarian. that I'm anti-war. I'm pro-civil liberties.
That won't get you far in the Republican Party.
Exactly right. And I'm not going to lie to people and say that my values are different. But I have no problem with whatever. And even if you're Maya and you're an activist and you have a principled reason for not voting, cool. The libertarians across the board, we all need to just respect the activism that we all have. And we need to try and put out as much accurate information as possible and do it in a way that respects other people's choices. Creighton felt that Cuccinelli was the better candidate. If I lived in Virginia, I probably would have voted for Sarvis. And neither one of those are... You shouldn't make a value judgment on that, because that just kind of is a dick move.
And state-level Republicans aren't really like small government Republicans. Like here in Indiana, the Republicans will be all about cutting taxes and making government smaller until they get to the point where they actually have to cut the tax revenue they have coming in. So it's not exactly how it is portrayed in the major media, where it's like the Republicans are the party of low taxes. State-level Republicans will only cut a smidge until it begins to affect their pet projects. And that's when they become the big government status that they are.
Right. So I really just was annoyed, and I really pissed off a lot of people. And, I almost made fun of all the anonymous masks and the Guy Fawkes masks on the 5th of November, but I figured I might as well keep some libertarian friends because I was downright obnoxious this week on Facebook. So I apologize to all of you, but I was really just irritated, especially to see libertarians using the wasted vote argument. I got infuriated.
Well, it was empirically wrong.
It's just factually wrong because you are, Greg, more of a Republican-leaning person. You come from the Republicans. You're a resident scumbag in chief for the Republican Party
With distinction.
With distinction, many honors, and you're like, I don't think, Chris. I don't think that you're right when you say that you don't poll more from the Republican Party. Because I am a libertarian person, and I would vote Republican if I didn't like the libertarian candidate. But what people fail to realize when they make that argument is that while you may favor the Republican Party as your second option, there are many libertarians who favor the left, the Democrat, as their second option, or no choices at all.
Because they're real social liberals. They're real. They're committed to it.
Well,
right.
On top of that, if I don't see a candidate I like, I'm not going to vote.
Right.
I won't go that far, but
I think that if you don't see somebody you like running for office, then you should just simply not vote.
No, then you have a responsibility to put your name in the race.
I don't think
not necessarily.
I
think so.
But the big thing is when you vote, you add one voter's worth of legitimacy to their victory. And if they know that they won, 60% of the vote with 90% voter turnout, they know that they've got a pretty commanding, or they can command a lot of authority over
it's a
their
mandate
office.
For them.
But if they only win by 51% and there was only 30% voter turnout, they know they don't have that great of control over their populace and that they're going to have to constantly be winning their populace over on every little thing.
Yeah, and so the data in this Washington Post exit poll, I remember in 2010 they did an exit poll here in Indiana, and it showed that Rebecca Sink-Burris polled like 7% from conservatives, 7% of her vote was made up of people who identify as conservative, and 8% identified themselves as liberals. And it's almost dead even with Republicans and Democrats. The same statistical trends were seen in this exit poll by the Washington Post.
Well, wasn't it like 6% liberals and less than 1% conservatives?
Conservatives, yeah. The conservatives came out in droves to vote for Cuccinelli, and liberals abandoned McAuliffe. And if Sarvis hadn't been in the race, McAuliffe probably would have won by a bigger majority than if Sarvis hadn't been in the race.
In Pepper's argument, a mandate.
Right. Mm-hmm. And, what really, part of what ticked me off as well is that if Sarvis had gotten 10%, the Virginia Libertarian Party would have had ballot access. And I saw a lot of small L libertarian Republicans arguing that, well, we shouldn't give them ballot access because that takes away from the concentration in the Republican Party of libertarianism. Well, you know what? That is an anti-First Amendment argument. That is an anti-choice argument. You're arguing for the tyranny of the binary, that we only have two choices. And secondly, we have the First Amendment right to organize as a group and speak out on politics, and that includes on the ballot.
And on top of that, the whole Libertarian-Republican alliance that we seem to see is kind of a misnomer. It doesn't mean that libertarians are more likely to be Republicans. It means that Republicans are easier to form coalitions with than Democrats tend to be.
Sometimes. Sure. I mean, sometimes.
Depends.
Not always.
Used to be.
If it's 2003, do you think that's the case? If the major issue of the day is going to Iraq, do you think that most libertarians are finding an easier alliance with Republicans than Democrats?
The Liberty Movement wasn't picking up a whole lot of steam in 2003. It was post-2004 when the Liberty Movement really picked up steam when Ron Paul had already given his message on national TV, and it was finally picking up traction. Then 2008 is where you really see it take off, when Ron Paul is pulling tremendous figures, even though he's only getting one question per debate.
Well, I'd just like to thank Ron and Rand Paul for costing the Libertarian Party of Virginia ballot access. Master troll.
They're not perfect.
I know.
Well, Ron, I think if Rand didn't have presidential aspirations and need to kiss the ring of the GOP to get the support necessary, I think Ron most likely would have supported Sarvis.
Well, I think, or they would have said nothing.
Yeah, they'd have just been silent.
And I'm just trolling. Listen, I love the Pauls. They're allies of libertarians. I'm not one of those people who says that they're not libertarians. I just think that's sort of a silly argument. And you can say that they're not pure libertarians. Well, no politician can be pure. Politics isn't about purity. If you want to be pure, don't get involved in politics at all. Sit on the mountain and meditate about, I don't know, Lysander Spooner or something. But if you're going to get involved in politics, you've got to start making some tough choices, and you have to apply the principles to policy positions. And in a state where we are so far from libertarian values, you've got to start peeling it back. And if you're not willing to get involved in the peeling back of what we've got and move in a certain direction, that's fine, but other people are willing to do that. So leave them alone.
They're your ally.
It doesn't make them less libertarian than you. In fact, what if we stopped acting like we're a club and that you are or aren't a libertarian, that it's either or, and started saying, you know what? Libertarians have beliefs. These are the libertarian principles. Some people hold these principles. Some have more principles that they believe in. It's a belief system.
It's a hair color. There's different shades.
Right. It's not a kneel before me, convert or not. It's just this whole week has been incredibly irritating, and not because a communist won in New York, a socialist won in Virginia, and a progressive Republican won in New Jersey. That's not even what irritates me.
That's a polite way of putting it.
Right. It's the fact that we're attacking each other and we're giving credence to these arguments that our movement has fought for 50 years, and it's coming out of the mouths of libertarians. It's hurting the movement.
I imagine that some of the libertarians don't know any better because, let's face it, our recruiting pool is the same two-party system that's been in place for so long, indoctrinating the populace. It'll take some time before people who keep talking about how, that's a wasted vote, It'll take a while before wasted vote is out of their vocabulary.
Yeah, it's going to take some policy wins. That's how it always really brings an idea around to mainstream.
I think the bigger goal is education.
That's what I mean. Like, they learn. You propose this policy, and that begins the education process.
It's not just policy. It's with Young Americans for Liberty. When I was part of that up at Purdue University, we had a 3-step process for activism: educate, train, mobilize. You just keep repeating that. You keep throwing the educational material until you get somebody who's a viable recruit. You get them in. You keep constant contact with them, and at that point you train them so that they know how to properly employ activism techniques. Because there is the right way of being an activist, and there is the wrong way of being an activist. And chances are, if you're signing a petition or going on this big boycott, you're doing it the wrong way. Then you mobilize and you actually get them out there. Participating in activism, and more importantly, participating in educating, and the education part's an ongoing process, but that's how you get the next generation of recruits.
Greg has nothing to add then. All right. I was trying not to monopolize the conversation.
No, I mean, I disagree with that strategy, but that's personal opinion. They're very effective. They're a growing organization, and they're the most innovative college campus organization ever.
It's a very simple and it's an easy strategy to replicate, and it's something that does not need any central planning. You're just like, hey, you see that guy? Go educate him,
Right. And by the way, Young Americans for Liberty, totally affiliated with this podcast.
Oh,
They actually fund us.
Yeah.
I got a contribution from them last week.
Right, yeah.
Check in the mail. It said Creighton Harrington approves this check.
Right. That's just a joke. We just tease. We know Creighton's not listening because he never listens to this stuff.
Man, you are causing a lot of editing work for yourself.
Listen, I'm a passionate man. A passionate man.
And sometimes that passion comes out in 4-letter words.
That's right. You get a microphone in my hand, and I just start swearing like Gina Bear. Okay, so we didn't give you the standard arguments for why the wasted vote stuff does. Nobody owns your vote. It's your vote. It's the lesser of choosing two evils is bad. All that kind of stuff you're going to hear in droves. All that you need is to go to We Are Libertarians Facebook page, find the picture and the Washington Post poll, save that, screenshot it, print it out. We'll post on the Facebook page an article from the USA Today talking about how he pulled more from McAuliffe than he did from Cuccinelli. Libertarians do not pull more from the Republicans.
In Virginia.
Anywhere, in every study I have ever seen, this is true. Libertarians pull equally from the two parties, and it's at a very small amount. It is largely made up of young people. It is largely made up of independents, and it is largely made up of people who are just flat-out libertarian and wouldn't vote for anybody else. And this is empirical data that you can keep handy and show. Hey, you remember when you were making that wasted vote argument? Here's actual data and actual facts that prove you wrong. Okay? Facts are going to work better. I just sat there and I trolled like crazy on election night and the day after. Every time I saw somebody, usually even libertarian people, making this argument, I would just put that on there and they go, oh, I guess I was wrong. Because facts are what's going to turn this stupid notion on its head. And you've got to call into talk radio, and I called into a Minnesota radio show. A friend who produces a radio show there.
You listen to way too much radio.
I know. And, well, my former boss from WXNT was like, I saw you make this post. Can you call in and explain why it's not a wasted vote? Rupert here in Indiana had the liberal progressives here in Indiana saying that he cost John Gregg the election because Rupert was pro-choice, pro-gay marriage, very union
polar opposite of John Gregg.
Right. Yeah, the polar opposite of John Gregg.
He was for civil liberties of more than just the waist down.
Right. And so we had the Democrats after the election saying we cost the Democrat the race here in Indiana and got Mike Pence elected. So it really is, if you're hearing the wasted vote syndrome that we steal from Republicans, it's really usually coming from a Republican, right? And it's because that's what their tendencies, that's their bias that they're showing. And these facts will help you counter this stupid argument. And lastly, once again, just to repeat, don't be a dick to each other, okay? If you're a Libertarian Republican, the Libertarian Party should exist. If you're a Libertarian Party member, I understand that you want to consider every Libertarian Republican guilty until proven innocent. I understand it because I'm that way too, but give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. I think as soon as there's a Republican presidential candidate or a Republican president, people like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee are going to turn like crazy.
I don't trust either of those two because they self-identify as social conservatives.
Right.
But a Justin Amash, that would really, I would be stunned.
Right.
But really, the only reason I believe Rand Paul's playing a tightrope game.
Yeah.
So he can get the nomination. Because when we were out at DePaul, and I got to ask his dad point blank, how are you and your son's philosophies different? He said we are the same in philosophy. I don't like politics.
Right.
I'm not willing to play the game, and Rand it is.
Yeah.
And that I was like, okay, if that's true, I will support your son. But if he screws me, I'm done.
Right. I think people like Justin Amash and Rand Paul are in it for the long haul, no matter the party. But I think people like Ted Cruz are just going to flip like crazy as soon as they're
Mike Lee, I don't know. We'll see.
But, just let's all work together. Let's all get along. All right? All right. Let's move on to our first question here, and it's something that we touched on briefly. So this is from Nathan Thomas, and he wrote this on our Facebook wall. So recently I heard that the reason Ron Paul has come out in support of the Republican candidate instead of the Libertarian is because Sarvis supports a gas mileage tax, which would require GPS monitors on our vehicles. That would be an invasion of privacy to him. While I like the idea of people paying for the amount of road that they use, I understand the desire to not have the government monitor our whereabouts. Any thoughts as to possible solutions to this conundrum?
All right, who's first?
Go ahead, Dan.
All right. I have special insight into this because I was a truck driver and put about a year into it. And if you ever notice the wheel wells on the interstate highway system and, well, just on pretty much any road, those, they look like they fit a car, but they don't actually fit a car. A car's too narrow to really cause that depression at that spacing. It's actually trucks. And so the big thing is you've got these giant, up to 80,000 pounds lawfully, trucks that are just causing this huge amount of road damage. The main thing that we should be concentrating on is with road wear. Oh, the main thing that causes road wear is big trucks. And the fact that we've got an interstate highway system that is entirely taxpayer funded means it is a subsidy to the shipping industry, not just any part of the shipping industry, but specifically trucks, not trains, or not rail, and not air. And so that siphons money from a productive sector of the economy to a less productive sector of the economy. Now, gauging individual four-wheelers, we call them, how many miles they use, they don't contribute to road wear significantly enough. I don't think that we actually need to count on a per mile basis how much road wear they cause. I think that's actually kind of a red herring. Overall, I mean, trucks are what damage the roads. And overall, the roads should just be privatized because it's a subsidy to the shipping industry in the first place.
Well, we already have gas taxes. It's leveled equally. So to me, I mean, I like your idea. Essentially, which kind of truck causes the most damage, they should pay the highest cost, right? The problem is you create a bureaucratic nightmare trying to implement and look at healthcare. I mean, it wouldn't be on that scale, but it'd be when you have government trying to make the decisions and the distinctions between what causes the most wear, all that stuff. It's a fool's errand. Realistically, charge semis X amount of flat tax or gas tax. Charge cars a smaller amount.
Well, that's sort of how they do it now. You buy your diesel tax free, and then based off of your logs, they figure out how many miles you traveled in this state. I want
it collected at the point of used.
Yeah. Well,
every mile toll road.
Yep.
Toll booth.
I just think, especially with the Qualcomm system we've got in virtually every truck, every major trucking company uses the Qualcomm system, which includes GPS and all sorts of sensors that tattle on you when you're not driving properly.
Doesn't it to concern you for privacy reasons?
I don't like the government to be able to collect data. I think that if companies want to passively collect data, or if companies want to actively collect data at the permission of the one who's being or having their data collected, I think that those are entirely reasonable. But if the conditions of a transaction depend on collecting that data, and the customer does not want that data collected, then the provider can just simply pull out, Like if you don't want your truck to be equipped with GPS and you want to drive on a private road and the private road requires that you're equipped with GPS, then you don't have the right to drive on that road.
So here's part of what I think we ought to break down is what is the problem with this notion? Now, I want to go back and say that Sarvis was thinking out loud about this and was taken out of context, and it was used as some sort of smear against him. and he wasn't coming out strongly in favor of this. This wasn't a campaign plank, and people acted like it was the thing that he was running on. He was just sort of having a discussion about it, and the quotes were lifted out. But let's talk about why this is a problem, okay? Let's think about this. So is our issue that he's proposing a new tax? Is the issue that it is a privacy issue, all right? Is it an issue that we're talking about government roads? I'm not really sure what people are so pissed off about, okay? Are you anti-tax? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like, if you're thinking about private roads, how do you pay for a private road, Peppers?
I mean, there's several models, like if you've got an interstate.
But fundamentally, do all those models depend on usage?
To a certain extent, for some of them, yes. Some of them don't quite require that. Like a residential road is going to be paid by the residents who live on that road, and that's not going to be based off of usage per se, because
something
it's
like,
not used heavily.
Something like a highway would be toll roads and usage. So you could say that that's a tax, but isn't usage more of a fair way to tax people? So I really think there's a disconnect here in the argument against service, because what he's saying is that the people who use this service should pay more for this service, which makes sense to me.
Well,
but
it's not.
If you believe in taxes, if you believe that all taxation is theft, then he's just wrong. He shouldn't be proposing a new tax. He should be proposing the privatization of roads. But then again, we're going.
That's DOA.
Am I making
not
myself
as much
clear?
as it used to be.
Oh, it's DOA.
Yeah.
Maybe in Virginia, but Indiana.
Anywhere.
No, Indiana. You know, we have the Indiana toll road that's
Go
been
run a
completely
campaign about the
privatized.
total privatization of roads in the state, and watch as you get less than 0.5% for governor.
Right.
It's DOA.
It works with this room, but
Yeah.
even Mittens is iffy on it.
Yeah. Tell us. Perfect test. Ask his wife.
Yeah.
Should we privatize the roads?
And she'd be like, what? My argument would be we have a private road right around the corner. It's one of the only private roads I've ever seen in existence, and it was built by the Lowe's movie theater oh so long ago as an access road. So if you go out here, the first road that you can turn left on is a private road, and there's a sign that says this road is, private. It's privately patrolled, and it is always in great condition. It is paved and coated, and the cracks are sealed. It is maintained all the time. Now, it has speed bumps, which really annoys me, but it's a private road. I have no say. Meanwhile, on Delaware Street, outside of City Hall in Indianapolis, it is the worst patch of road in the history of man.
There are better roads in Bosnia.
There are 5... It is a gravel road in downtown Indianapolis. I mean, it is atrocious. 5 years, they have finally gotten this stupid thing paved last weekend. And it has taken them 5 years to finally rebury the rail tracks from the 1800s. I mean, it is obscene how bad this road is, and it's outside of City Hall in Indianapolis. And maybe it's an apples to oranges comparison, but, I don't know. So to go back to Sarvis, I don't agree with adding more taxes on top of the taxes that we have. Maybe he's trying to say that he wants a smarter form of taxation where the person who uses the service pays more for the service. Which, if you're going to have taxation, that seems to be a smarter plan than forcing certain, the progressive income tax, where you have more subsidization, however you say that, at the top. If you don't believe in any taxation and you don't believe in government roads in any way, okay, I would largely agree with you, but then how are people going to pay for the road? Wouldn't it be usage? Wouldn't it be collecting it? Maybe I'm wrong, and somebody can please write to us at Spangle.
What would ultimately end up happening?
Libertarians.com.
That market would morph into essentially a license. And whenever you have a license, it'd be just like health insurance. The heavy users get subsidized by the less...
Hey,
you're fine. The heavy users get less... end up being subsidized by the people who use it less. It's like progressive insurance. We were talking about that before. they end up having such competitive plans because they have such big pools, and then the people who use that insurance, the bad drivers, end up getting extra money from the people who don't get in accidents as much.
Ultimately, though, insurance companies are constantly trying to figure out ways to figure out who those high users are, those high-risk people are, and they're getting better and better at identifying them every time. It's just, you can't identify every single risk factor, at least at this point.
You still would have to have a mandate, though, because what if that was the only road? They had no other road to get out on, and they got kicked out of the group that decided to build that road, and they had no access anywhere.
The problem is that doesn't happen in real life. Even though we have let's look at just the interstate system and the federal highway system. Two different systems, but they're run concurrently by the same Department of Transportation. We've got basically single-payer roads. With a few minor exceptions. The thing is, if you look at where US 40 and I-70, or US 40 versus I-70, they pretty much follow the same path. There's a lot of...
That's one major example. I'm talking about, let's say you live in a neighborhood or community that decided they were going to have their own private road system, and they picked one provider. All of a sudden, you have one guy who's a bad driver, and the community decides they will not grant him access to the road anymore. You still are going to have some sort of government functioning body that guarantees access.
No, you don't.
A mandate.
No, you've got Donnie Baker sitting at the end with a rifle trying to keep everybody off. I mean, that is a good question. I mean, how do you keep people off of your road if it is a private road? I mean, like, I know the Lowe's road over there, the way that that's paid for is the businesses along that road all pay a special fee. So if you rent space on that road, you have a road fee because you have to pay for the access. We as taxpayers, we as users of that road do not have to worry about having access. And, the business owners at some point decided to put speed bumps on that road. So that is one way that it's paid for. But if you're talking about his case, I mean, is it,
This is a real and personal thing. I had a client that lived in, it was Huntington, Texas, right outside of Texas A&M, and he had a private road agreement with his neighbors. His name was, he won't listen, Richard Wagstaff. Richard.
Oh, that old cat.
Yeah, he wanted to refinance his home. But we had to do an FHA loan. So he went to his neighbors and he's like, would you guys mind signing this agreement stating that you continue to give me access through the end of my life? They wanted him to move, so they said, no, we will not. He went to go get a private road made. The county denied it.
Well, here in this circumstance...
No, he's a really nice guy, but they wanted his house because it's oil and mineral rights.
In this circumstance, the main reason he couldn't make his own private road was because the government came in and used force to stop him.
If he wanted to build his own private road, he would have still had to get their agreement, and they had agreed to that. They just wouldn't have given him. They wouldn't have signed that.
But what he's saying is that in a stateless society with private roads, it wouldn't be an issue because there wouldn't be a government stopping him from building his own road. He'd have to privately fund it, but he could do it. No one could force it. It's voluntary versus force. And yes, I know I left off the voluntary part, so I'm mentioning it. He's being forced. His hand is being forced, so he can't build his own road.
Even though he has the property,
the resources and the property. Now you don't have the resources. What do you do?
If you don't have the resources, I mean,
how hard is it to? You can walk a path in the woods, and it becomes a path. Like, it may not be a paved interstate; it may be a gravel road. But what's wrong with that?
Yeah. And on top of that, you need to, when you build on property, you need to understand what kind of needs you're going to have and how that's going to affect your transportation needs and how you're going to continue to resupply yourself. If the only road you have is a private road, you need to make sure that you have access to that road on a regular basis, and that your source of being able to...
Did you say you are forced to make sure you have access to that private road?
I wouldn't say forced.
But you have to have it.
But you just said forced.
Oh, I mean...
Statist.
Even the private...
Not forced.
Even the guy arguing for private roads loves the government and state.
No, I mean, if you have no other alternative other than to use that road, say it's in a mountain pass or something, where building another road is just not an option for you, then you need to make sure that you have
let's say you're a
consistent
spouse
access.
and your husband dies and he built this place up in the mountains, and now because he died and they couldn't wait for him to die, they're not going to give you access to their private road anymore, and you live in the mountains. You better be self-sufficient pretty quick.
No, I mean, there's other things to consider, you know. Are there delivery people who can bring you resources that do have access to this road, who can continue to pay to access this road? Are you able to pay for your own road? Should you sell this property and move to a different part of society where you do have better transportation? If you have special needs, then you need to tailor your property in order to meet those needs.
It just goes back to every problem that society has, whether there is a government or not a government. I mean, if there is a problem, people will solve it. If there needs to be a road built, people will build it. And
check out this beat while my DJ revolves it.
Thank you. But, yeah, I mean, most of human history had roads not built by the government, and we all survived. So, all right. Any final thoughts on this particular issue?
This is a really good illustration of where I disagree with like a voluntarist or even an anarcho-capitalist society. I would want almost a constitutional monarchy where there were explicit rights guaranteed on paper that you could not be infringed upon, or there's legal remedy if they did. And then I'm okay with this kind of stuff.
See, we made it through the whole discussion without asking who will build the roads. The great inside joke for libertarians.
Oh, yeah.
My roads.
All right. Let's answer this question from Casey Walters. Casey writes, "Hey guys, browsing the paper tonight and saw the article about the Connecticut University lockdown over what could well have been a Halloween costume. It seems to be blasting on every news station right now. Have there been universities in the past that had lockdowns where government came in and stopped school advocacy or campus protests? It's actually a topic that I don't think I've ever heard libertarians speak on to date. It'd be great to work that into an episode. Well, your wish is our command. Customer service is a high priority here at We Are Libertarians, Casey.
Because we are private."
So, I'll ask Greg first, because I'm sure he'll have a snappy answer. Has the government ever stopped school advocacy or campus protests?
Well, if you like to be pepper sprayed in the face at UC Santa Barbara, I highly suggest you apply because they're pretty consistent at doing that.
Or murdered
Kent State.
Yeah,
Kent State,
I can't believe Ohio State wanted to get it. What was it, an MRAP? Yeah, they bought an MRAP, and I was like, how dumb is your message? Your PR people should be horrified. I mean, I just wanted to say, I made the meme, actually. Like, when has something bad ever happened to Ohio college kids at the hands of the government? I mean, it's one, college campuses don't even really need police. They need, like, the event security people at Conseco Field.
Oh, man, the Purdue police, they were always like, oh, we can respond to any place on campus in 30 to 60 seconds. I'm like, I can fire 2 well-aimed shots from concealment in 1.4 seconds, I think, somewhere around there. So, yeah.
You are not giving me any safety or comfort, you Purdue Gestapo.
Yeah, your 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Damn, son. What are you, cussing?
You cuss 2 times.
Yeah,
I get to cuss once.
I own this microphone, sir. So...
I'll bring my own microphone then.
Good. See if I care. Hold on, let me write this down. I need to find the curses. May just stop editing out the curses.
Dude, I will follow your lead. If you go curse free the entire time, I'll go curse free. But if you start cursing, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that you're willing to edit.
Libertarians never struck me as followers.
Yeah. Statist.
I am being trolled.
I know.
No.
Sorry,
I am
Peppers.
seriously
sorry.
being
Listen,
trolled.
you're the new guy.
Peppers, I'm sorry, buddy. I shouldn't have done that to
So
you.
you don't need to apologize.
This is like hazing. He's gonna leave the podcast to go to the hospital.
There's a reason everyone leaves.
Greg
There's a
Incognito.
reason
over
why
here.
there's
Oh, come on. Me?
Greg Incognito.
You support public schooling one time, and everything just blows up in your face.
Are you gonna threaten me for $15,000 so you can go to Vegas?
Yeah. Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Well, tough luck, you know.
It's an application fee.
Yeah, it's an application fee to be part of Wall. Mittens paid it. You don't want to. You don't.
If you can find 15 grand, you can keep it.
Yeah. Oh my. So the answer is yes. The government has curbed protest. I mean, the old timers back in the '60s wanted to make sure that that many protests were shut down.
All those John Kerrys couldn't go out there and rabble-rouse.
It wasn't just about the Vietnam War. It was also about civil rights. I mean, the government shut down campuses because so many racists were trying to keep black people out of colleges.
But they also let them in.
I know. Well, so they were. I mean, Kennedy called in the National Guard on several colleges. So, yeah, the government has curbed protest, and they do it in the name of public safety. So you're going to find this hard to believe, guys. Sometimes the government, in the name of safety, needs to limit your rights to make sure that you are okay.
You don't say.
Yeah. I know. Really weird. Never would happen in America. Not going to happen ever. But they have occasionally shut down free speech on campus. But the good thing is that they have reopened free speech on campus in free speech zones.
Oh, special zones?
They're the new smokers.
Yeah, special zones for free speech. So, oh, Mittens, you're so cute. Mittens just came over and started cuddling on me, which means I'm 3 seconds away from being mauled to death by this vicious, cute little tiger.
He's very much like Dr. Evil right now.
She really does.
Get your pronouns
just
right.
You. I meant you. Or look like Dr. Evil.
I'm just sitting here stroking my cat, hoping for $1 million. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on free speech being limited on campuses?
Well, the right to assemble, that's a big one.
Maya this week participated. We can talk about the anonymous rallies a little bit, but Maya participated and led one of the marches on November 5th, and Maya made everyone, by force, march in the street. And so she shut down traffic around downtown Indianapolis on November 5th.
You see, if you would have just come up to me and said, guess who organized a protest that shut down traffic downtown Indianapolis, I would immediately say Maya.
Right, yeah. And so I hear, "Bah, bah, 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 bah." And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I look out my window and I stick my head out and I see all the masks, the Guy Fawkes masks, and I hear, "Hey, fat ass! Take a picture! Stop standing there and looking chubby!"
Can't believe more people aren't voluntarists.
Oh, yeah.
So I got a picture and posted it on her Facebook wall. But a bunch of libertarians even started like, how dare you, Maya, go march in the middle of the road and shut down traffic and disrupt the flow of traffic and put people in danger, and where was your permit?
See, that sounds awfully similar to my gripe about the gay pride parade. I'm just driving along, and all of a sudden there's all these people who are participating in the parade who start shaking their asses in front of my car, and I'm just like, come on, I need to get to work. I'm already running late to work.
I don't have time to masturbate right now. So
I think at your suggestion, they're renaming it the Queer Parade, are they not?
No, stop that now. Don't be bigoted.
Peppers, back me up on that.
Who walks up to Maya and says, "Did you get a permit for this rally?" You apparently do not listen to the Uncontrollables. But yeah, so that's an interesting little tidbit there. All right, let's start wrapping up here. Unbelievably, we've gone an hour and 7 minutes so far, which I don't know how that was possible considering we didn't have anything to talk about. So thank you.
I find that libertarians don't need anything to talk about.
That's right. So thank you for writing in. If you have questions for us, please write in. You can email them to me through the contact form on the website, or spangle@wearelibertarians.com, or go to the Facebook page. You can write it on the wall, send us a message, whatever. We'll find it, and then we'll answer your questions. I find a lot of times, like, one of the things that I've thought about doing on the website is like a little contact form that says, "Is this a thing?" Because my time as an executive director, and then before that, like working in news talk, people always think that there is like this big thing going on. It's like, we need to get the word out on this. This is a big scandal. And then you go, no, it's actually not, because this is how this works, and it does this, and it does that. So it's not really a thing. And so if you have one of those, if you think that you've found like this big scandal, send it in, and we'll take a look at it and see if...
it better not be from InfoWars.
Yeah, if it's from InfoWars or Natural News.
If I can go onto Reddit Conspiracy and find it on the front page, it is being deleted.
Right. So... the Kennedy anniversary is soon. Speaking of conspiracies. So, final thoughts on that. Send us emails, send us questions. We love those questions. With the holidays coming up and our waning interest in politics, your questions are greatly appreciated if you'd like us to have a weekly show. So, Kennedy. Oswald the only shooter?
Yeah, I think Oswald was the only shooter.
I thought that he was the only shooter and he acted alone for a long time. I read Robert Caro's books on LBJ, and LBJ was one of the most power-hungry evil men I've ever read about in my life. And so when Roger Stone comes out and puts a book out about how LBJ killed Kennedy to become president, I go, I could kind of see that, because he seems like a real scumbag. So I could entertain that theory, but otherwise I'm not really sold on like aliens came down and shot him from behind.
No, several mafia members have admitted to ordering the hit on Kennedy as well. Bobby was named the district attorney once he won, and the mob won Kennedy the election.
Right.
I think it's 18. If 18,000 Americans vote differently, Nixon wins.
A lot of libertarians think that because he tried to tighten up on the Fed, that's the Fed killed him.
Every president that's tried to essentially take control back over of our currency has been, what do they call it? It's like the red code or the red line or something like that. That has been assassinated.
A lot of presidents have had assassination attempts on their life.
Oh, yeah, just the ones that have threatened to take over our own currency.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very, very... I think for sure the mob is who... When they introduced the RICO statutes, they might as well have just gone ahead and said, shoot me.
I don't know. My point of view is there's so much shady stuff happening out in the open that we should concentrate on that first before trying to invent dragons to slay.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying that we need to devote any more than the 2 minutes here, but it's always
that
interesting
was for
to see
you,
where
Chris
people stand.
Galt.
Yeah. Our buddy Galt. We need to get back in touch with that guy.
No, we don't.
I like Galt. I'd have Galt back on.
I like Galt too, but, you don't get just Galt when you have Galt.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about fluoride or anything, but I'd like to see how he's doing, what he's up to.
If we do it, we got to do it from Building 7.
Stop it. All right. Let's get up on our soapbox and let's talk about what we may have missed on this particular episode. Let's start with Greg Lenz. What would you like to promote, plug, yell about, scream about, anything we missed?
Really, it's just, I think what I'm going to end up doing is kind of ask just a quick question. One thing that came to me this week that I didn't really get to talk about.
This is Kenneth Cole. I know I look fantastic. So, yes.
I had no idea they had a tie-dye collection.
Yes, this is who I'm wearing.
Interesting. No, it's the president. It's being discussed that he has unilaterally gotten rid of economic sanctions on Iran. Do you think that is a good thing, a bad thing, and why?
Honestly, I think the more trade we have with Iran, the more they have to adopt liberty values.
I think the richer the country's people become, the bigger their middle class becomes, the more self-interested the nation becomes, and they want to protect their economic liberty, and the greatest destroyer of economic wealth is war. War disrupts everything.
Oh, peace can disrupt a lot of stuff if you make a lot of nukes during that time.
Sure. But war activities are very, they're not beneficial for the economic sectors. If you think that we got out of the Great Depression because of World War II, go check out the broken window fallacy. It's like a blue animation video on YouTube, and learn a little bit about the broken window fallacy. So I think that lifting sanctions are a good thing because that means that more money flows back into the pockets of the people who hold the real power, which is the people that elect these folks. And I know that sometimes we think that if we starve a country with sanctions and all these other, what Ron Paul calls weapons of war, that it makes their people more restless, it makes them poorer, and they'll start overthrowing their own government. Well, they just turn to a different strongman. And Iran and Syria and all these countries prove that. I mean, if you look at the history of Iran, it was a very wealthy country, and then we put in the Shah. The Shah just took over so much of the country's wealth that they overthrew him and put in Khomeini, and he's been a thorn in our side ever since. He and his successor,
and women who have had to wear shawls ever since and not go to school
and
anymore.
so it's not been good for their country. So I'm all in favor of lifting sanctions and not punishing the people that
even if
actually
they
pay
have
those
grand
prices.
implications over there.
You know, we've got to start transitioning out at some point. And
I don't mean for us. I mean for like other countries that are on the verge of falling.
Like the King of Jordan, for instance. Yeah, it sucks. Maybe it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
I say who cares?
Another thing we haven't considered yet is when you put economic sanctions on a country, you also deprive your own citizenry of being able to invest in that country and generate wealth for themselves. When you put economic sanctions on a country, somebody's going to trade with them. I mean,
Russia.
We have sanctions against North Korea. They trade with China. We have sanctions against Cuba. They trade with Mexico and everyone. Well, Mexico, Canada, everyone in the Caribbean. When you're looking at Iran, the big group of people who are benefiting from our economic sanctions are actually the Georgians. Apparently, the Georgians are making a killing supplying asphalt companies and
They're brokering
construction
American goods.
They are pretty much brokering American goods. And Americans could be making money off of those investments, but instead, we've got the Georgia middlemen who are making a bunch of money. And I don't have any problem with making money, of course, but that is opportunities we are foregoing at the expense of our own citizenry more than we are at the expense of Iran's citizenry, because Iran is going to get those goods just at a higher price.
So why do you hate liberty, Greg?
No, I just think, one, we have such strong ties with Israel, and Netanyahu's, for lack of a better word, pissed. He is getting kind of brushed off into a closet saying, listen, we don't care that governments are following all around you, and granted, he's restricted the freedom of many, many, many Palestinians and is by no means free from a lot of terror he's caused. But I feel like for some reason, the Middle East is so different than just countries acting out of self-interest.
I don't think it's much different. Honestly, all we need to do is quit shoveling free money and free weapons to them. Let them duke it out for a decade or so. They'll realize that killing their own people is not very productive, and then they'll just realize that they're spending all their treasure on warfare, and they'll have to stop at some point. Either they'll realize that that they need to stop, or they'll stop because they can't afford any more bullets.
All right. Daniel, anything you'd like to promote? Any final thoughts for the show?
I've just been having fun being on here.
Hanging out with Jeffrey Tucker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got a point.
Tell us about your greatest day ever last week.
Oh, man. So, start out at the Young Americans for Liberty panel discussion.
Even before that, though, you got to talk to whom?
Oh, yes. I woke up bright and early in the morning, worked out, actually. I had a lot of energy.
Heavens forbid.
Yeah. Showed up at Spangle Bear's place, and
it's just not as sexy when he says it.
No, it's sexier when I say it,
Because you look like an actual bear?
Because it's naughtier when I say it.
Guess what? I'm not
more
looking.
taboo.
I'm not looking for you to be naughty here. Okay,
it's taboo. But anyway, so I got to participate in an interview with Tom Woods, which you can hear my excellent question about Thomas Jefferson. He pretty much answered it the way I hoped he would, and afterwards ended up going to the Young Americans for Liberty panel hosted by We Are Libertarians.
Yeah, I got to host my first panel. I really should have shortened the bios, but otherwise I thought it went well.
Yeah, the bios were a little long, but
like 12.1 page bios. I mean, full page length bios, and I'm looking at them going, okay.
That gets a crowd raucous every time.
Yeah, nothing turns an audience on. Like at one point, Lenore Ely goes, "You can stop now."
She did. I remember when I introduced Jeffrey Bell at the ISI event that Purdue Young Americans for Liberty put on. I had 3 sentences, and then I thanked a couple people and welcomed everybody there, and then I got off the stage. But anyway, so I'm at the Young Americans for Liberty event, which has Jeffrey Tucker there, which Andrew Reno actually took my advice on having Jeffrey Tucker come there. So
Jeffrey Tucker's like the coolest dude ever.
Because I had heard the interview that was done on the show report, and I just felt that he was a very well-spoken anarchist, and there are not enough well-spoken anarchists out there. And I
He's a likable anarchist.
Yeah, he's very likable.
He's the one.
Yeah. He is the
one. He is Neo.
Yeah, Neo of voluntarism. And then also the whole WAL and YAL partnership was something that I had just spitballed at Reno when he was over at my apartment hanging out. So afterwards, we end up going to the Elbow Room,
yeah, you went to the Elbow Room, okay.
Which is right
bar.
by my apartment. It's within walking distance. And I end up going back to my apartment, and then my brother says, I'm inviting some people over. I'm like, nah, that's cool.
Now, at this point, I walk up to say goodbye to my wonderful former intern, Suzanne Schaefer, whom I love like a sister. And I hear Chris Peffers going, nah, man, it's okay. I just live right over there in the tower. And I go, is this troll trying to drag you back to his tower? She goes, yeah, but I'm not going to go. I was like, good girl, go home. You two were trying to lure college co-eds back to your tower, your apartment.
What good is a tower when you're not trying to lure
fair
maidens to it?
maidens?
Yeah.
Right. I texted her after I left the concert I went to right after the y'all thing, and I was like, you didn't go to the tower with those 2 bearded men, did you? And she goes, no, I'm at IU, which IU is a much safer place for a young female.
Yeah.
So
if it's Pepper's House of Weed or Indiana, I don't know what exactly the better bet is.
The Pepper's House of Weed.
Pepper's House of Weed. But
I'm gonna get a no-knock warrant on it.
yeah, Jeffrey Tucker, in fact.
But yeah, anyway, so these strangers come into my home, and they say, "Oh, we're bringing Jeffrey Tucker over." I'm just like, no kidding, you know?
Right.
And Jeffrey Tucker, half hour later, is sitting drunk in my apartment.
I'm sure he wants that out there, but he did have a couple.
Oh, come on!
bourbons.
Like he cares if people know that he's drunk. He was bragging about the Irish coffee he had at 10 a.m. at the airport.
Yes, but that wasn't to 10 of tens of listeners.
No, that was a pretty.
I was pretty upset because, I mean, granted, I was absolutely hammered, but I was about 2 blocks from you guys, and I didn't know until the next morning, and I was like, I could have gone to the Pepper's House of Weed with Jeffrey Tucker.
Oh, man, he had stories, too.
Oh, no building can handle that much liberty or THC.
Oh, man,
I don't believe you can really tell any of the stories that he told you, though, can you?
Nah, except for he is into this thing where if he eats a fortune cookie and he likes the fortune, he'll eat the fortune too.
He'll eat the paper?
Yeah, he ate 2 fortunes in front of me.
That's awesome.
I mean, is it that weird? Christians ate Christ's body once every month?
But it wasn't made of paper.
That was flesh.
Did you know?
At least flesh makes sense.
There's a great podcast called The Memory Palace.
The Memory Palace.
Yeah, it is like a 5-minute little history thing. Nate DeMaio, I think is the guy's name. He's an excellent writer, a great podcast. And Nate DeMaio, that's what it is. And he talked about the what was the wagon train of people that ate each other in the mountains in the Mormons.
Oh yes, what was their
starts
name?
with an S.
Yeah, the something.
How can we?
I know what you're talking about. I can't
right
even
on the
think
tip. It
of
starts with a P, maybe.
Cannibal Mormons on a train.
Right, cannibal Mormons on a train. Apparently that wasn't true. Apparently they never actually, none of them actually ate each other. What happened is a bunch of them were freezing to death. Somebody went ahead to get a crew to come out and get the survivors. The Donner Party.
The Donner Party, yes.
Donner Party. And so they came back and they said, well, we've got money buried somewhere here, and we'll give it to you if you save us. They couldn't find the money, so the guys brought them back, but then said that they ate everybody. That it was actually out of spite.
Urban myth.
Yeah, and so the whole thing was just a total fabrication, and the poor Donner Party girl who lived with that for the rest of her life, and now they're like the most infamous cannibals ever. So listen to that Memory Palace podcast, because he tells a story much better than I do. All right.
Why would we? We already know the ending.
Production value.
Exactly. It's got fancy music, unlike
you're supposed to be like they do on the evening news. Was the Donner Party all they cracked up to be? Find out at 6.
Or CNN. Cannibalism, good or bad? So if you listen...
they're abandoning news. I saw that.
Yeah,
more CNN news.
Watch The Daily Show this past week. Good or bad?
So how does that work? They're abandoning news?
Yep, they're going to become like a Discovery Channel / History Channel / True TV /
So like no news, no...
Jake Tapper.
Like documentaries, and so if you see documentaries and you see reality shows that teach you stuff, that's what they're going to start
So
shifting
what's
to.
Robin Meade supposed to do?
I don't know. Go to work for Al Jazeera with its 200,000 viewers on a peak point.
I remember when Al Jazeera is considered the terrorist news
Actually,
network,
I think it's like 20,000.
And now Al Jazeera English is like one of the few American news outlets that actually do news.
All right, so for my item, I want to invite all of you to please go to libertarianism.com. This is the beginning of a project that I have been working on, the beginning of the public phase, and I've been working on how to explain the very basics of libertarianism in a very simple way, in a very easy-to-use format. So go check out libertarianism.com and see if you learn anything. If you've got suggestions, please email me. Let me know. So very happy to finally have that started and out there. And everybody who takes the world's smallest political quiz is going to land on the first one, the one with Marshall Fritz, if you're there viewing the website as we speak. And hopefully it's going to convert a lot of people, and we're going to continue to learn how to message to libertarians, so check that out.
In a centrally planned format.
In a very centrally planned format. All right, everybody, thank you for listening. I thought that this was quite the episode. It was an episode of We Are Libertarians. So for all of you listening, we really do appreciate it. We appreciate you sharing the show. We appreciate you going and reviewing us on iTunes with all 5 stars. If you give us anything less than 5, please don't review us on iTunes. And make sure to tell somebody about the libertarian philosophy and more importantly, this podcast. And next week, we promise
to do better next time.
Music for We Are Libertarians is provided by Hoosier musician Brian Keith Wallen. Please check out his website, briankeithwallen.com. The song is Bad Spell.